everyone, and welcome to Rebecca and Rebecca, where we love books. This is my partner in books, Rebecca Yager from Dallas, Texas. Hi, Rebecca. How are you?
I'm doing all right. How are you, Rebecca?
I'm doing well, and thank you. It's been a great week. I've gotten a lot done, so I'll just leave it at that.
Okay, you're feeling accomplished.
Yes.
Good.
And here we are to discuss another book, and this one is a really interesting. We've been on a World War II kick of late, and we're sticking with that, but in a totally different way. This is Tricia Goyer and Nathan Goyer's Breath of Bones. So you want to read about that, and we'll get into our discussion.
Yes. When darkness falls, a new guardian emerges. Katerina Dubova has always aspired to walk in her father's footsteps as a respected journalist, and the Second World War presents a unique opportunity for her to prove her worth to the world. A tip about an assassination attempt on a high-ranking Nazi official, Reinhard Heydrich, the Butcher of Prague, leads Katerina into the shadows of the Nazi occupation. Soon she discovers things are not as they seem. As intrigue unfurls, Katerina joins forces with Joseph Lowe, a descendant of the famous Rabbi Lowe, renowned for creating a mystical guardian in the form of a golem to protect the souls of 16th century Jews in Prague. In the chaos of war, some believe a new golem can once again bring help to those in need. Like flickering candles in the abyss, Katerina and Yosef work to protect the innocent and end the evil that plagues their world. Yet in their quest to save the Jewish people, have they inadvertently created a new danger? And could the very entity they had forged to protect become their greatest enemy? So this is Breath of Bones, and it's an adult historical fantasy steampunk, a mishmash of genres. So,
Yes. And so this is a very different because I don't know of anybody else who's written this particular mixture. And it's very creative, in my opinion. I mean, we've done some steampunk things before, and so you get the clockwork, you've always got in steampunk, there's always the clockwork things and the mechanical things and these
mhm,
interesting uh, mechanical creatures, and that's kind of the idea of it with the dirigibles and like things like that. So very interesting, to bring all of that into a setting that we're very familiar with, World War II and the Nazi invasion of Czechoslovakia at the time.
mhm.
So we have that's the backdrop of the whole story, is the Czechoslovakian invasion or occupation by the Nazis,
There you go.
basically. And we have our main characters, Yosef, who is Jewish, and also then we have Katerina, who is not.
Mhm.
Totally different sides of the conflict. She's a Czech, but she also has a German ancestor, which really also gives a very interesting perspective because of that mixture. She's Czech, but she's also part German, and she spent time in Germany. She speaks German very well. And so this creates both opportunities and maybe some occasions for people not to trust her because of the things the Nazis are doing. Puts her in a very unique position. She's a journalist, as the book cover mentioned, which um, gave her some opportunities that other people didn't have, maybe to see what's really going on in that area, in their city, but also puts her kind of head on a block also as well, because the Nazis uh, were very much understanding. They understood that information and the people who control information
Mhm.
also control the minds of the people, and so they were working behind the scenes to ensure that the news was the news they wanted to be presented. And if you didn't follow the guidelines, you probably disappeared very
Yeah,
soon.
yeah. So
So,
the Nazi propaganda machine was alive and well in Prague during World War II. So,
yeah. So I personally, I did not like the beginning of the story. I did like the end, and I liked a lot of the elements through it, but I just had an issue with the beginning, and it wasn't insurmountable. And I did enjoy, like, as I got going into the story, I
Mhm.
really did enjoy it, and I liked all the steampunk elements. I'm a fantasy fan anyway, so that part was no problem. But um, yeah, I just thought it took a little bit too long for me to like get the characters to the point where the story really begins, which is actually the assassination attempt, which is where when she starts to really dig for the truth. There was a lot of things that we needed to know about her, and I didn't write the story, so like kudos to them because they had a lot of setup to do, and I don't know how exactly they could have maybe fit some of that stuff in amongst the story later. That was just my complaint about it, was it
Mhm.
just took a little too long to really get to the meat of the story. Once it got rolling, the Golem legend was amazing. What they did with the Golem and how they brought it into steampunk, I loved. I liked what they did with the different weaponry and the tanks and how Yosef was an inventor. I thought that was
Mhm.
fantastic. That was
Mhm.
really neat. Um, what about your impressions of the story?
In a way, I agree with you. The story seemed to take a little long to set up, but it had to be set up. I think
Yeah.
we had to understand Katerina's conflict between her goals and desires to be this great journalist, especially in her father's newspaper, and yet she's been somewhat romanced or being kept a very close eye on by a high-ranking Nazi official. And I don't think that's too much of a spoiler to say that. So she's kind of infiltrated the Nazi party in a sense. Um, almost has no choice to as a citizen of Prague, and she's not Jewish, and so she's got to play nice, but she keeps digging for the story and keeps digging for the story. So yeah, maybe it could have been sped up in some parts, but really you kind of need the setup, and then you kind of need Yosef's background, and you got to feel his frustration and stuff before he and Katerina actually meet, which is again shortly after the assassination attempt. So it really is two different stories. We're watching these two characters, and it does take a while for them to meet in the story and to get things going. But here, you know me, and we talk about this a lot. I don't always read fantasy. Steampunk, what's that? Way above my head. And I found myself thoroughly fascinated by this book. So this is one of those where I'm so, so happy I read outside my genre. Now I do like history, and stuff. And Tricia, by the way, did we mention this is a mother and son writing team? Tricia Goyer and Nathan Goyer. I'm not even sure we mentioned the authors.
No,
Um,
well, I mentioned them, but we didn't talk about them being mother and son. And so
they're
that
mother and
adds a whole
son.
nother like element of cooperation to this
Yes.
because yeah, I mean, such a cool thing to do, to write, with your son. And um, I mean, plus I knew this before, was that Tricia has a daughter who lives in
Mhm.
Prague,
Yeah,
or not
yeah.
in Prague, in the Czech Republic.
In the Czech
So
Republic, she's missionary.
there's a lot of
Yeah,
personal,
yeah.
experience in some of these settings, and it does feel as if you're right there when you're
Hmm.
in the story. The
Hmm.
description, the setting, all of the story world elements are dead on. I mean,
Hmm.
you are Katerina, you are Yosef, you are
In Prague.
doing in Prague on the
You're
Charles
there.
Bridge. I mean,
Yeah.
the whole bit. You are there. And and these two characters are very, very, very philosophically different in many ways.
Mm-hmm.
We have, Katerina, who is not Jewish but is determined to like dig in and figure out what's really going on. And once she finds out about the resistance, and there's a whole lot, she really is like she wants to she wants to fight with words. Of
Mm-hmm.
course,
Mm-hmm.
she's being strangled down because her father doesn't want her to be shipped off to some place nobody knows where she is.
Disappeared. disappear.
Yeah, she doesn't want to be just, yeah, exactly. So she's being silenced
Yeah.
mostly, but she wants to fight. Yosef wants to fight with weapons. He's an inventor. He invents a lot of these really
Mhm.
cool weapons that, they Nathan come up with. And they both want to fight. Her biggest problem with her father is it seems like he wants to just go along with the Nazis. He doesn't want to really do anything
Mhm.
contradictory.
Mhm.
And Yosef's biggest problem with his father is he just wants everybody to hide. He doesn't want to fight either. And at
The
least that's what
grandfather,
Yosef, grandfather, oh yes, I'm
Yusuf's
sorry. His
grandfather,
father
that
is
wants to
is
hide
gone.
and get along
Yeah, he
and
just wants to
stuff.
get along, hide,
Yeah.
no fighting, don't, these weapons, we can't use them, the whole bit. So they both share that in common with, that they want to fight. Their closest relative does not seem to want
Yeah.
to.
Yeah.
And so it really, I think that does pull them together, kind of brings them in a it kind of makes a little nexus of connection there between them where they both have a goal, in
Mhm.
mind. But then when they actually meet the golem, the interaction between them is so different, and the way the golem reacts to one versus the way the golem reacts to the
Mhm.
other, completely different. And so
Mhm.
you get a really, even the golem, has these so many sides to his character. It's just fascinating
Who knew?
the facets of that. Yeah.
There's a lot of push-pull. I think what we're saying, the thematic of this book, it's do you hide, do you fight? There's reasons for both that are well spelled out through the course of this story, where yes, it does make sense to fight in one sense, and sometimes it makes sense to hide and to preserve um,
Yeah.
lives. So there's a whole just this push pull, oh,
Hmm.
all the way through. I think,
Yes.
and it is, as you said, it's carried over in how the golem is with between Yosef and Katerina.
Yes. It's quite a good like story to, if that's what you're wanting to work on, is that tension between two equally good choices.
Mhm.
This would be a good study for you
Yeah, for
as a
writers, yeah,
writer.
yeah.
So, because it is very well, and it follows through the entire book too. It's not just in
Mhm.
one little spot. It's,
Mhm.
and the authors did not give the characters the easy route,
No.
out either. They made them like really, um, delve into their own motivations too for what was going on and
Mhm.
what was their desired outcomes.
Mhm.
And there were a lot of those kinds of choices where neither is a good choice, but you have
Mhm.
to make one.
Mhm.
Those impossible decisions that really, um, come up, and you kind of want to write into those, but you're sometimes you tend to veer away and not make it so hard, I
Yeah.
think.
Yeah.
This one they did not.
Well,
So,
they didn't shy away from, and like you said, the choices weren't always black and white. Sometimes it's two
mm-mm.
very poor choices, and yet you have to choose one.
Yeah.
And it's difficult, but that's the what it's like in war. Um, and of course, Tricia Goyer is well known for writing historicals, knows World War II very well. So yes, we did feel like we were in Prague in the middle of war. Um, fearing is it safe to be on the streets? Do we have our papers? All this all
There's
this
a
kind of
spider
stuff.
tank coming around the
And then the
corner.
spider tank, which is Nathan's
Yeah.
description of the spider tank, is just like, oh, wow.
Yeah. You could see them. I mean,
Oh,
I could
gosh, you
see
could see
one
it.
walking down my driveway or whatever. I mean, it was that clear, that real. A lot of the weapons too were like that. You could, and you don't have to be a mechanical person to understand the descriptions that they give too of how like the flamethrower kind of thing, and there was all these other different really inventive weapons too that, were utilized, and it was interesting,
It's
very
pretty cool,
interesting.
but something tells me Tricia has a greater imagination than just the World War II part. So it'll be really fun when we talk to them to see how they combined
It
and
will.
joined forces to write this
Yes. Yeah,
story.
we've had authors that wrote together
Mhm.
before, but separate stories. We've never had two authors that wrote the same story, and especially a mother-son combo. So that will be very fascinating to speak with them, which is coming up later this month, of course.
Yes.
You'll want to tune back in for that.
Mhm.
Um, and see, exactly who wrote which parts and how that all worked together. That'll be really interesting, I think.
And yeah, I think it will be fun. But to me, I think it's a book worth exploring. I think that the mishmash of genres, just because it's so unique,
Hmm.
and so different, such a wide, you know, World War
Yeah, they're
II's
very
over here,
diverse.
historical's
Yeah,
over
you've got,
here. Yeah,
but
yeah,
no, I think you're right. I think don't let that scare you away.
yeah,
If you're like, oh, I don't read spec fiction, or I don't read science fantasy, or I don't read science fiction or whatever, any of that, I don't even know what steampunk is. That's
yeah.
okay. You
Read it.
will when you're done. Yeah, because it is. And who cares about the genres anyway? We just want to read good books. And that's what we like. And this is definitely fits in that category.
Yeah, I
It's a
think so. And
quality book.
I think you nailed it. It's a good book. You're involved with the characters. You're involved with what is going on in the world at that time. And yeah, there's some fantastical things that happen, but by that point I'm just sucked in and I'm just, cheering for Yosef and cheering
Yeah.
for Katerina and you know, um you want them to be victorious. And so now, to be honest, there's a little bit of a cliffhanger at the end. The story does resolve,
Hmm.
but there's still a little bit of a cliffhanger. There's a book two, and that's coming out in June. So that's next month.
It's a
You
small, I thought she said
small.
July. Isn't it
No,
July?
it's
Is it
June.
June?
I
It
looked
is
it up. I
June?
did verify
Okay,
it.
June, July.
That's what I
It's
wanted to
coming up
say.
soon. Yeah, it's not that far away. And the cliffhanger is minor compared
It's
to some of the other ones that we've,
Oh, well, yeah, compared to some of the other ones, but it's there. It is
it's
setting up the
there.
book. And again, the story is basically complete. So um for what they're doing. So, but yeah, you can pick up. And the next book is, what is it? Flight of Fate. Where's
Flight,
my, yep,
flight
Flight
of
of Fate.
faith, fate,
Fate.
fate. Yes,
Flight of
fate.
Fate. And these cool covers. By the way, also these books are almost worth, if you don't buy books, if you don't buy print copies, these are probably worth buying the print copy because the covers are really cool. They've got unique little features with them. So I think they're some that are shelf worthy
Yeah.
on that. So yeah, I think it worth, if you're going to try a different genre, try this one. I was very pleasantly surprised, and I can honestly say that. So
And I did re listen to the audio, and I liked the narrator. I thought the narrator did a great job, and there's a lot of dialectical kinds of things in this
mhm.
one, and I thought it was well done. So if you are an audiobook aficionado, this one's a good one. So,
Yeah, I did. I listened to part of it on audio and then couldn't stand it because I had to read at night, and had to keep
uh,
going. So I ended up switching and reading it. So, but yeah, it's good. And there's a book two coming out, and we will talk to Nathan and Tricia Goyer coming up and see what else they've got on the horizon too. But again, I think this one's worth checking out if you want to read something really different
yes.
and unique, but good characters. So good enough. Well, in again, 2 weeks, we're going to talk to Tricia Goyer and Nathan Goyer right here on this station. Stay tuned. Meanwhile, follow us on RebeccaandRebecca.com. We're on Instagram. We've got a YouTube channel. We're on Spotify. Anywhere you listen or view your podcasts, you should find us. We appreciate you following us.
And all our links are on RebeccaandRebecca.com.
Right. And comment. We like to have a
Yes.
conversation too. So we'll respond. Guess what? We'll respond. We're happy to talk books with any of you. So come on. So, all right. Anything else?
I don't think so. Like, yeah, like I said, this is definitely an interesting one. If you want something a little different, and you're tired of whatever you've been reading all winter, this is something different. So
There you go.
try it, check it out.
All right. Meanwhile, we will see you next time when we talk to the authors of this book, and then we've got fun surprises coming up in June. So stay tuned for that. All right. For now, we're going to sign off from Dallas and from
And
Indiana.
Indiana,
Thank y'all for being here. And Rebecca, we'll see you next time.
yeah, thank you. Bye.